Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, what a nice big class we have today. Nice to see you all again after a little bit of a break. I hope you're all well and keeping warm. Akash, Abdul, Adabimpe, I can't go through all of you. There is a significantly large number of people on you, but nice to see you with Zain at the bottom there. All right, down to Z, A to Z. Happy New Year. Thank you very much indeed. That's very kind of you. Yes, hello everyone. Good. Some familiar faces, some new names. Who is here for the first time? Anybody here for the first time? Right. Oh, yes, one or two, quite a few. Well, welcome. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. That's really nice. We're going to use the raised hand function. Some questions from part one, but thank you for raising your hands. Anyway, Nima, just caught you there. And welcome also to our viewers and listeners and speakers, of course, on YouTube. So greetings to you guys over there. I hope you had a good new year, if that's the kind of thing you celebrate at this time of year. Over here in Vietnam, we haven't quite got to the end of our year yet. We're waiting till the beginning of February when we start having our new year. All right, good. Let's get going, shall we? Oh, let's just check to make sure I'm not too early. Oh, I'm a little bit early. I'll wait just to make sure, see if there's anybody else to come on board. All the way in Nepal, Sunil. Super duper. Thank you very much, Kay, for that new year. Happy New Year. Thank you, Karti. Thank you. First time, Noura. Noura Haddad, great. Welcome. And Prasad is in there in Qatar. Good. Hi there, Qatar. Hi, Prasad. A little bit warmer than here, I hope. It's quite cool here in Vietnam today. I was talking to somebody in Delhi only today. Temperature 1 degree. I thought, well, that is too cold. But let's warm ourselves up a bit by doing a bit of speaking. Before we start, just a reminder for you, those of you who are already members of E2 Language, we do have small group classes for speaking. And that may be a good way for you to get more practice and for more feedback. Just 5 students, 1 teacher in a class. Thank you, Anisha, for your Happy New Year's. Thank you, Shanur. Hi. Yeah, so there we go. That's and there are several of those every week. We also do writing in the small group classes too. Okay, let's move on. What are we doing today? Okay, so a bit of a quick overview of speaking, just for all of you who are new to speaking. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box. So Sunil has his speaking test the day after tomorrow. Well, good luck there, Sunil. I'm sure everybody in the class and on YouTube wishes you good luck. I hope you get what you need. Oh dear, Laura's got hers tomorrow. It seems like there's a lot of tests at the moment. I've met a lot of students who are having tests soon. Hey, Subia, welcome, first time. If you've got any questions, stick them in the chat box and I'll endeavor to deal with them. All right, here we go. Now, so that's what we're going to do, a little overview of the speaking, a bit of a brainstorm with a vocabulary for our part 1 practice. We're going to do lots of test practice. And we're also going to look at what do you do in part 3 when you're not sure what to say? When the examiner asks you a difficult question, how are you going to buy some time? Q&A, as I said, as we go along. Let's get moving. IELTS speaking, here we go. Yes, you're in the right class. If that's what you want, we're doing IELTS speaking today. Good. And everybody knows that it's 11 to 14 minutes. Okay, and it goes very quickly, the time, it really does. And there are 3 parts, and we're going to deal with all 3 during our session today. Now, let's have a look. What is going on in each of the 3 parts? Well, part 1, personal questions. It's an opportunity for you to get warmed up, to get your language moving, because the questions are quite simple. But we are going to look at ways in which you can develop nice full answers so that you show the examiner the best of your English. Part 2, as you all know, is a 2-minute talk. And we'll look at that a little bit later. And then a discussion, well, the examiner asking you questions and you giving answers. And then the examiner asking you other questions about what you said. It gets a bit more difficult then because the questions are about topics that maybe you've never thought about before. All right, Part one is no score. No, part one is scored. What you're thinking about is what we're going to do right now, which is when the examiner, so my screen's not moving. Before we do that, you're thinking about when the examiner checks your ID. Fluency and everybody knows these, don't they? The band descriptors. Coherence, thank you very much. Oh, Pavitra, greetings. Well done, Mary Grace. Mary, how are you doing? All right, lexical resource, fancy word for vocabulary, words, and grammatical range. Do you have a good variety of different types of structures, different language, past, present, future, conditionals, all that kind of stuff. All right. All right, that's right, Srividya. No worries. And lastly, pronunciation, of course. These are the band descriptors. We've just gone through the headings there for each of these 4 criteria. And it's a good idea for you to have a look at the band descriptors. Make sure that you know what the examiner's looking for. Thanks, Prince. I'm good. Well, actually, you can tell probably from my voice that I've had a bit of a cold, but I'm certainly getting better. Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, you get a score for each. And of course, then the scores are added up and divided by 4, which gives you your final band score. All right, so that's that part of it. But let's have a look at the speaking part 1. But as somebody mentioned, before we start the part 1, the examiner has to make sure that you are the right person sitting there in the room for him to give the test to. So he asks you these kind of questions. All right. Now, these kind of questions are very simple. They're not assessed. So you don't have to worry. You can relax. This is really good, actually, because it means you can just relax. And being relaxed is important, right? When you relax, you perform better. At least I do. All right. So your name, where you come from, and to show your ID. All right, that's all. Let's move on, though. We're not going to practice that because for part 1, we want to have a think about some of the vocabulary that you can use when you practice these part 1 questions now in the class. Let's have a look at some vocabulary. So you've got a short time, it's just a minute, to brainstorm vocabulary, verbs, and nouns, I think probably would be best, to talk about the 2 possible the 2 topics here, the area you live in and television. Does anybody watch it anymore? I'm not sure. Okay, you've got a minute. Pop your words into the chat box. Reside. I reside in. Very good, actually. It's great. Countryside, rural. Okay. An urban area. I used to live. Great. I like that. Okay. A serene neighborhood. Very nice. A sultry climate. Ooh, yes, indeed. I'd like a sultry climate right now. It'd be good. Urban channels I live in. Well, that's pretty straightforward. I'm a resident of. My hometown is, my village. Outskirts of the valley. Huh. Resident, spelling there. A metropolitan area. Okay, how about TV? We got any TV here? Citizen, a Lakeview, suburban. Very good. Waterfront. Blistering heat. All right, not much of that at the moment. Or maybe in Australia. Outskirts of a city area. I'm from Delhi, which is in the northern part of India. Very good. All right, okay. TV, currently living in. Villa, neighborhood. Not much on TV here so far. How about a bit of TV? Smart TV. Oh, well, there we go. TV is kind of old school. Well, that's what I thought, actually. We need to update our lesson, I think. Well, these are a few of the words that we came up with. Quick, have a minute to read. And what I'd like you to do is to pick out 2 or 3 that you're going to try to use when you practice answering the part 1 questions. Yeah, I like that expression there. It's kind of old school for TV. It is indeed. I'm sure people still watch it. An LED curved screen. Yeah. Cathode ray. That was a really old one, wasn't it? That's funny. Someone came up with the expression, you probably saw that, the stupid box. Well, I like that. I don't know. I've not heard that one, but we used to call it the idiot box, right? Because people just sat there in front of the TV like that and didn't do anything and never talked to anybody. All right, let's do some practice, shall we? But first of all, quick quiz, 30 seconds. Stick the words, the red words into the boxes at the top there. There you go. All right, there we go. Yes, glued to. Well done, Mary. You came up with that. Great. To raise a family, a sedentary lifestyle. Kids seem to be very sedentary these days. Okay, glued to the screen. You couldn't stop watching it. Your attention span. All right. Yes, has a bad impact, quite possibly. It's really lacking sports facilities. So you could say, well, I like living in my town, but it's really lacking several things. First of all, etc. Okay, so have you got 2 or 3 bits of vocabulary you're going to try and use in answering these questions? I hope so, because we're going to do that. Now, what happens in part 1, for those of you who are new, and a reminder for you old hands, is that the examiner asks you some questions. The examiner has 3 sets of 4 questions, which she will choose from. Now, she's got a whole selection of other questions that she can ask, but she will ask you 12 questions on 3 topics, if there's time. Okay. Now, their questions are quite straightforward. The ones in the first set of questions she will ask you, 4, all right, are either about what you do you work, or are you a student, or where you live, something about where you live. And then the rest of them, well, she chooses from a wide variety of topics. There's a few examples there. But it's a good idea, even though you can't predict what it is you're going to be asked or what topic she's going to ask you questions on, it's a good idea to practice those. And that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to have a look at some techniques for practicing them. Now, remember, the questions are simple and they're personal, such as things like, well, do you live in a large town or a big city or a small town? Did you play sport as a child? Those kind of things, very simple to answer. But you can't just give short answers because, as I said earlier on, you are wanting to show the examiner the language you've got and the ability to express your ideas so she can understand you, right? That's what the test is all about, your ability to communicate. So here are a few techniques to help you to extend your answers and, as I said, to show the range of grammar and vocabulary that you have. Some of you will remember these, but I'm not testing your memory because it's been a couple of days, couple of weeks since we had the class. So here are 6 possible ways of you to extend your answer. Now, of course, you're going to answer the question, give your opinion. You might say why, number 6. You might give a few details, number 2. You might say give some contrasts. Oh, well, before it was like this, but now, okay, which is similar to comparing past and present. When I lived here as a child, it was a really very small town, but now it's, or you can compare the present to the future. So you can see you get a variety of different ways of answering these questions, and they'll help you also to use the past and the present tense, or the present and the future tense, and so on. So that's the idea of these techniques. So let's do a bit of practice. Here we go. Now, what we do here in our lessons for you newbies is I get you to get your phone and to put it on to record. So I'll just give you a second or two to do that. I hope it's charged. And then we're going to ask David, our examiner, to ask us a few questions. Just to remind you of our methods, there they are in the box there. And I'd like you to try using all of them. All right. Now, don't try using all of them to answer one question. Just try using a couple, maybe 3, and see if you can get a variety of different ways of answering questions. You can see that this could really help you, couldn't it? It could really help you to give some full, interesting answers. All right, are you ready? Have you got your phones already on record? Okay, so I'll get David to ask you the questions, and then we'll get back and I'll get you to answer the questions when I ask them to you. Okay, here we go.
Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about where you live. Do you live in a big city or small town? What can people do for fun there? What would you change if you could?
Good. So how are you doing? Let's move on to three more. Oh, two more. Here we go.
Let's talk about TV. Did you watch much TV as a child? Do you think children these days watch too much TV?
So how did you do? Did you manage to use some of those different methods? Did it work? So what you can do after the class, you can have a listen to your recordings and you can try them again if you like. Remember that the more speaking you do, and also I think listening to yourself, although it's sometimes quite unpleasant, the better your speaking is going to become. I'm just looking at the chat box. I see that Ariaman has asked a question. I'm not sure whether the question was to me. Sorry, I missed your question, Ariaman. So if you'd like to put it up again, just checking to see if there's any. All right, Galaxy J2 would like some help. Okay, just having a look through the chat box here. You guys on YouTube, we use the chat box here to communicate with one another. Yeah, the 15 seconds here, there is no time limit in the test, okay? But the examiner, if you give a long answer, may say thank you and move you on to the next question. If you run over time, don't worry. But when you're practicing, keep your answers fairly brief and short, but well developed. That's the idea. All right, just okay. Aravinda wants someone to practice with him. All right. While you're speaking, Gvansa says, I stop and think. Well, that's okay. There's no reason why you shouldn't stop. But while you're stopped, make sure you keep speaking. Just indicate to the examiner that you're thinking. All right. And we'll look at some ways of doing that a bit later. But it's not a good idea to pause for more than a second or two before you start speaking again. All right. Okay. So I'm going to get you to raise your hands, or just one hand will do. Okay. And I would like to ask you some questions. Okay. So we've got Rajesh is already up, and we're going to use the questions that you were just working with. Let me just get my screen sorted out. All right, so what I do is I just unmute your microphone and then we can talk. Okay, Rajesh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Rajesh. Hey, you're nice and clear.
Hi.
Hi. So, Rajesh, do you live in a big city or a small town?
I live in a border of the city, like it's kind of urban sprawl. So it is totally mixed up horizontal house constructions, and we don't have high-rise buildings. And I live in something small areas with a lake surrounded and some kind of agricultural farmers are very close to us. So it's a little bit rural area.
Thank you. So you live on the outskirts of the city, could you say?
Yeah,
Kind of half
outskirts.
country, half city. Okay, good. All
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Okay, so give that a bit more practice. Have a think about ways in which you could. Now, have you been living there the whole of your life?
No, I've been living here for 2 years.
Oh, for 2 years. Okay. Well, then
Yeah.
you could say, well, at the moment I'm living on the outskirts of a big city, but I only moved here 2 years ago. And before that, I lived in whatever.
Yes,
Okay.
you're right. I lived in a city, art city. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Thanks.
So that's all right. Lovely. Thanks very
Thanks
much.
for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay. No worries. Okay. So who else have we got? Krista. Sorry, Christo. Is it Krista or Krista? Hi.
Hi, how's it
Hello.
going?
Christo, hi. Good, good, good. So, Christo, do you live in a big city or a small town?
Small town. Small town.
Okay. You going to say any more?
Could you repeat that, please?
Do you live in a big city or a small town?
Okay, small town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, you've got to say a bit more than that. You can't just say small town. All right.
Small
The
town.
idea of
I
this
see.
part one,
Small town.
okay, is to get yourself warmed up and to use your English and to impress the examiner. What can you tell us about your small town?
Uh, the question is, what can people do for fun?
No,
Right?
I asked you the question, do you live in a big city or a small town?
Small town.
Okay. Now you're going to extend your answer and tell me more about your small town.
Okay.
How many people
So
live there? Is it in the countryside? Well, I don't
okay,
know.
no.
Okay. So, Christo,
Okay, I live in
do you understand?
right.
Okay. So when you go into the test and when you're practicing for the test, practice extending your answers, saying more. You can start off, oh, I live in a small town. All right. I've lived here all my life. It's a lovely little town, actually. It's very quiet. It's just at the foot of a mountain. And we've got this big lake, which I always used to go swimming in when I was a kid. All right. Something like that. Okay, Christo. So practice extending your answer with some of the ideas that we gave you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Wait. Can I ask you some questions, please?
Not at the moment. No, we've got to move on. I'm trying to get this.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
taking your time.
That's all right. Okay. Now we got Sleka. Sleka,
Banyak
hello.
perorangan kenapa sih
Yeah.
keluar?
Hey. Hey, Sleka.
Okay.
What can people do for fun in your town? Hello. What can people do for fun in your town?
From the parks and from we can enjoy greenies over here, greenage area here, and also you can feel connection with the soil in my village, and my village is far away from the city.
I'm sorry, Sleka. We're having problems with the connection.
Hello.
I'm not hearing very much of what you're saying. Thanks for trying.
Live in
But I
a
think
city which is. Sir, can you hear me?
not really, no.
Hello?
No, it's very difficult to hear you.
Sir, can you hear me?
Seleka, your connection is not very good. Sorry, Seleka, we'll have to move on. All right. So Tamal. Hey, Tamal.
Hello, Graham. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah, I'm fine.
So thinking about your hometown or city, what would you change if you could?
Which question is that?
Well, just listen to the question. You don't see the questions in the test,
Okay.
so just listen. So thinking about your hometown or city, what would you change if you could?
I will change the condition of our traffic because I live in Bangladesh and the traffic situation is horrible. It's too much bad. There is too much traffic and the roads are very much polluted, and the traffic police, they don't follow the rules and regulations. To sum up, my country is like I want to say it's corrupted, like in some parts of in some part of our life.
I see. Thank you very
I
much.
think I
Tamal.
messed up in the end.
That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Now, be careful with your language. Too much bad. You can't say it's too much bad. You could say it's awful, or it's very bad, or it's really bad. All right, something like that. Okay.
Okay.
But what you would like to change, you could also say what you would like it to be like. Okay. What would you like to change? So would you like more public transport? Would you like an underground metro system or something like that? All right. So be creative about your answers. See if you can find lots of different things you can say. But thanks for giving it a go. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope
Thank you, Graham.
it changes before too long.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Thank you very much, Tama. Sorry, my Zoom screen here is yeah, thanks, Tamar. Just put yourself on. Okay, so now we got to Siraj. Hi, Siraj.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. So
Hey,
here, good
hi.
afternoon is there.
Good afternoon to you. Now, let's move on and talk about television now. So, Siraj, did you watch much television when you were a child?
Yes, I really do. When I was a child, I used to see a lot of television. I was in front of this television all day. And in fact, I have so much favorite TV shows which I used to see every day in my childhood days. So they are like shows of 12 o'clock on Sundays. On weekend days, we have morning shows. So I didn't want to miss any kind of shows. So I was very fond of that.
Thank you, Siraj. Yeah. You said I do when you meant I did. Just be careful of your past tenses. But I like the examples you gave, even though I didn't understand. I'd not seen the programs myself. But that was good. Thank you very much. That was fun. Thank you, Siraj. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry. Who have we got next? Kayode. Kayode, I'm unmuting you. Hi there. Kayode, you are muted at the moment. Just unmute yourself. That's it. You got it. All right.
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
Oh, well done. So, Kayode, do you think children watch too much television these days?
Well, I would say yes, they do watch a lot. They watch TV a lot these days, and I think it's beginning to affect them in so many ways. For instance, children of nowadays find it very difficult to concentrate. Their attention span is very, very low, and they kind of falter in their education. And I think one major factor why that is happening is because they watch too much TV.
Thank you very much. I think you made a very good point there, Kyoda. That was a very nice answer, everybody, right? So he explained why, or explained the consequences of watching too much TV. Very well developed that as well. I followed it easily. Thank you, Coda. It's a very good example of how to answer a part 1 question. Thank you. Right, sorry guys, I'm having serious issues with my screen here. All right, my Zoom is very, I don't know what's going on here. Sorry about this. I'll just see if I could. So Cody, if you could mute your microphone, that would be great. All right, I think I did it. All right, let's move on, gentlemen and ladies. All right, sorry about that. Technical issues, but there you go. Maybe I'm out of practice, haven't done it for a couple of weeks. Okay, let's move on and do part 2 now, shall we? Sorry if I didn't get you on screen, on the line, as it were, asking questions, but listen to your recordings after the session and see how you did. And think about that last response, that last answer we had from Coyote, how well he developed it all. That's the kind of thing that you're aiming for. So part 2, let's have a look. So the examiner says, now I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. And then the examiner hands you a card, having said you can make some notes if you want. So you get a minute to make those notes or to prepare. You don't have to make notes. Nobody looks at your notes. It's not important. You can just sit there and think about it if you want, but who knows? Making notes might be helpful for you. So practice making notes and see if it is useful. Then the examiner says, right, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, and he asks you to start speaking. And the examiner then at the end may or should ask you a follow-up question. Such a short question, and don't give a long answer to that. Okay, let's have a look. Here's a task card, example task card. Ooh, that looks like a tricky one, doesn't it? Hope you don't get that one. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of methods for extending your part 2 talk, talking for 2 minutes. Because some people say, 2 minutes, that's such a long time. But actually, it's not really. After a bit of practice and using some of the techniques, you'll be able to do it very easily. So let's have a look. What could you do? First of all, and you can watch this on one of our YouTube videos, all right? Jay's done a very nice one on the past, present, future method. And there's a couple of versions here. Let me just give you a quick illustration of this. So, for example, you could include information from the past, the present, and the future. All right. Now, if you were talking about a law, you could say, well, actually, I remember quite a long time ago, a law was introduced in my country, which made it very, very difficult for young people to buy a house. You could talk about that. But quite recently, they've been making lots of different laws, and you talk about oneness. But there's one law that I don't think will ever come into force, but I think it would be a really good one, and that would be E2. So there, of course, you can see we've talked about the past, the present, and the future, which means you have to use verb forms to talk about the past, present, and future, which shows the examiner that you can do it. Well, I hope you can do it anyway. But anyway, it's a good way, it's a good idea to practice that, right? Because it does, in fact, give you plenty of practice at using your different verb forms. So that's one, and you can try that today. Or you can use let's call it the traditional method. You start with a short introduction. You say, okay, well, let me think about a law that came in recently. Oh, yes. And then you describe what the law was. And then what you do, you say what you know about it. And then you say what effect it's had on your country. And lastly, how you feel about it. All right. So that's the more traditional method. Now, of course, remember, you may get to the point where your 2 minutes has not finished and you still have to keep speaking, but you're not sure what else to say. It's very important that you keep speaking. And so what you can do is you can say something like this. Now let me think, what else could I tell you about this law? Oh yeah, there's one other thing one other way I think it's actually had an effect on my country, and that is, so you go back to what's on the card and you say something more. So don't just stop. Use no clock in the room. You don't know how long you've been speaking for because you're not allowed to take a watch in. The examiner is the one who tells you when it's finished, as she tells you. I'll tell you when your time is up, she says. All right. So you just have to keep talking until the examiner says, thank you, and then asks you another question. Okay. So that's the way it goes. Now you're going to see a clock here, which is a bit, it's not quite like it is in the text, but there we go. All righty. So practice both of them. Try one of them today and try another one at home. So if you're ready, we'll get a bit of vocabulary sorted out because we're going to talk about the topic of leadership. Yes, it's not about a law. Thank goodness. Okay, so let's have a think about the topic of leadership. What vocabulary, if you were asked to speak about leadership, what vocabulary would you use? 45 seconds, quick brainstorm, put your vocabulary in. Charisma with a K, supervise, subordinates, leader, responsibility, lead from the front, I like inspire, goodness me, persuasive, counsel, encourage, admire, teamwork, improvise, motivation. Goodness me, it's like having your own dictionary here. Collaborate, authority, strategic management, ooh, cheerful, that's nice, delegation, empathy, leader, of course, let's see, delegate, vision, mission, responsibility, motivate, and so on. Wow. Now you may have some new words there or words that you might not have thought about. Perhaps you can choose some out of the chat box. They're all there for you to use. We've come up with one or two. Have a quick look at what we've come up with. And maybe you'd like to use one or two of those in your 2-minute talk in a moment. 45 seconds to read those. I like that one, is a born leader. All right, you probably know a good listener, absolutely. Someone who has an innate gift, that means they're born with it. Okay, it's a gift that they haven't learned, they actually have it already. Good. So maybe you could pick up one or two words there that you might like to use. An egalitarian, I like that. Have an innate gift to delegate, work, not works, to their subordinates, Lahari says. Absolutely right. Oh, is that right, Jenny? That's good news. Excellent. Yes, the dogs are barking. Don't worry about it. Okay, are we ready? Are you ready to do some practice? Remember, you're going to record yourself, but before we do, quick match of these. And these may be words that you can use because there's some good ones. Match the number on the left with the red on the right. Looking good. Yeah, I like number 3. Nice to have a phrasal verb, look up to. Okay, let's have a look at the answers. There we go. Yep. So natural trait is that innate gift. A charismatic person, someone who's, well, they're charming, but they're also inspiring as well, I thought. Someone you really like to be with and listen to, right? To look up to, that's a nice word. A visionary and authoritarian. Well, I'm not sure. You might get to talk about that as well. Okay, so again, see if you can use one or two of the words that you don't normally use. Make them yours. Here we go. Let's do some practice. So grab your phone. Now you're going to get a minute to prepare. So if you want to make notes, you'll need paper and pen. And then we'll go straight through it. Okay. Are you ready? Okay, here we go.
Now, I'm going to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you speak, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say, and you can make notes if you wish. Do you understand? Here's a pen and paper for your notes, and here's your topic. Please don't write on it. I'd like you to talk about a leader that inspires you.
Yes, Prince,
All
you
right.
can.
Remember, you have 1 to 2 minutes, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please? Thank you. Would you like to be a leader?
Thank you. No, that'll do. Just a very short answer to that last question. And then the examiner will ask for the paper and the task guide back. Okay, now, how did you do? Some of you were concerned that nothing was happening. Well, that was the time when you were supposed to be speaking. But I'd like to address one or two of the questions, all right? And they were questions about, can we talk about Prime Minister Modi, for example, from India? Can we talk about, is it necessary to talk about a business leader? Could you talk about your father? Can I talk about a friend or a family member? And the answer to all of those is yes, you may. All right. But if you're going to talk about your father, then you might have to say a little something like, well, now I'd like actually to talk to you today about my father. Now, let me explain why I'm talking to you about him. Well, he was in fact the leader of, and then you explain why. In the end, what you talk about here in part 2, you have quite a wide range of possibilities. You need to talk about a leader, and that's it. Okay. The examiner's not going to worry if you don't talk about what he or she thinks is a leader. Remember, this is a test of your English and a test of your ability to express your ideas clearly and fully. All right. So there's quite a lot of what we call latitude here. Okay. All right. A sports star. Yes, of course. Absolutely right. A sports star. That's absolutely true, Akash. You don't have to talk to the 4 points here. You can talk about one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, all of them, or none of them. It doesn't matter. They are there just to help you to think about what you could say. All right. Any more questions? That's a good question. That how can we identify when we're pausing for words or for ideas? Well, I think you would know when you're pausing for words. You can't think of the words you need. All right. But ideas, that's a different thing. We all pause for ideas, don't we? But in the end, just don't have lots of pauses. Okay. Make sure you, as far as possible, keep talking for most of the time. And if you need time, we're going to have a look at how you can find ways to say that you're still thinking about what you're going to say, and you're going to say a bit more in a minute, but just hang on a second. All right. Okay. So we'll have a look at some of those in a minute. Any more questions here? So Christo wants to know how he can improve his English skill. Well, in terms of speaking, Christo, I mean, the first thing is do lots of it. Speak in whatever way you can, and also listen to yourself. Get to know what you're good at. Get to know what you could do better. Yes, a family friend is fine. That's fine, no problems. Yes, you can. So Varu asks, can we look at the cue card while we're speaking? The cue card is on the table in front of you. At any time, you can look down at it and say, now let me think, what else? Oh, yes. And then start speaking again. Good idea. Thank you for asking the question. That was a good one. You could Sumia. Exactly. Yeah, that's fine. That's why you admire her. You could focus. You could talk for the whole time about why you admire this person. That would be completely okay. I mean, you'd have to be able to, lots of ideas and develop them and so on, but it's possible to do that. All right, so remember, Shashank, how would I be graded? Okay, well, we had a look at the band descriptors earlier on. There are 4 criteria: fluency and coherence. Can you speak without effort? Is it easy to follow you? Then there's your vocabulary. All right, so do you have a good range of vocabulary? Can you use words precisely? Can you use words that go together correctly, collocations? Have you got some less common words in English? And we're here talking about a 7 or more. So have a look at the criteria. Then, of course, the grammar, which you mentioned before. And so make sure when you listen to your recordings, have a listen for things like grammatical accuracy, articles, subject-verb agreement, plurals, verb tenses, are you using the right verb tense, those kind of things. All right, good. Thanks for all those questions. How to have flow while you're talking? Well, you're probably here talking about, well, it's more likely to be sentence stress, but I'm not sure what you mean by flow here. But flow really comes also from linking your ideas together and helping the listener to follow what you're saying. So using expressions like, well, so I just told you about why I admire her. Now, let me think. Well, look, I first heard of her, I think about 15 years ago. So you're using that language to signpost, to tell the listener what you've just been doing, what you're going to do. Those kind of things helps the flow. I wouldn't use you know too much, Jaspreet. All right. It does say you should say. Don't worry too much about that, Smithy. Do the best you can. You'll be all right. Can I talk on this topic because it's my exam speaking next week? We're not going to do any more practice today, Jaskaran. I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that. I wouldn't say you know too much, Vijay, as we said. If you search for vocabulary, am I missing grammar in that? Is that fine to use normal vocab? I think the best thing to do is to use the vocabulary that comes to you, because actually, most of the time, it's kind of hard to really think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it at the same time. A lot of the time, we're thinking of the ideas and then searching for the vocabulary. Just do the best you can with whatever you've got, because, you know, when you're actually in the speaking test, you don't have time to stop and think about vocabulary. You need to keep speaking, which is why it's so important to do lots and lots of speaking and listen to yourself. Okay, good. All right, I think we need to move on. A lot of questions, and sorry I can't answer all of them. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time. Let's have a look at part 3, shall we? Okay. Now, the questions in part 3 are related to the topic in part 2. So we're going to be talking about whatever it was in part 2, or leader. Now, you're going to be asked questions that you probably have not thought about before. Don't worry. Again, as we say here, it's not a test of how much you know about the world. It's not a test of your intelligence either. It's a test of how well you can continue speaking in English and communicate. All right. And remember, of course, the questions are general and you should not speak personally. For example, say, well, my dad told me, or when I was young, my mother. Okay. So don't tell personal stories. Okay. The examiner will ask you to stop doing that. Here's one of the questions, and this is about a leader. In your opinion, what are some qualities of a good leader? So immediately you go, I don't suppose, has anybody ever asked you a question like that? You say, oh, well, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure. Well, I suppose, look, I guess for me, one of the most important of a good leader, qualities of a good leader would be if he was trustworthy or if he told the truth. I mean, that's a good one, isn't it? Currently. All right, that kind of thing. All right. Now, we've got some methods here, techniques to help you extend your answers and use lots of good vocabulary and grammar. Okay. So what you do, first of all, is you give your view, your idea, and you explain. So qualities of a good leader. Well, I think, you know, the leader is honest and tells the truth. And I think it's really important he does that, because otherwise it causes a lot of confusion. And in the end, nobody will trust him. Frame your language, as I said before, using words and phrases to, well, for example, if you're talking about a good leader, you say, well, there have been many good leaders in the past, but one of the best, I think, was. So I'm framing it, giving a little context. Buy yourself time. Well, that's a tricky question. Not quite sure. Well, look, I mean, I guess that the first thing I say is that sort of language. So at the same time as you're speaking, you're also thinking, maybe about vocabulary or about ideas of what you're going to say. Give examples, of course. You can always find an example from your country, from your society, from your culture, and so on. Or you could try considering two views. Well, many people would say that, but look, I read only yesterday that, those kind of things. That's a kind of framing as well. All right, so there's some ideas of how to extend your answers. Yeah, well, they can be challenging for sure. And these are the hesitation devices that you might find useful. Practice them. Make them your hesitation devices so they don't sound like you just learnt them. All right? Just when you need time to think, you can say things like this. Well, let me see. Well, you know, it's, I mean, like, I don't like. Try not to use that one too much. Or things like this. I mentioned the first one before. Never really thought about that before. Oh, that's tricky. It's hard to say. And so on. And I'm sure you can think of other ways to give yourself time to think. Yes, before we speak. That's right, Tamunosiki. That's correct. Before we speak. You've been asked the question and you go, well, think. Never really thought about that. But, I guess the first thing I'd say is that, so practice one or two of those if you need them, okay? But practice them anyway. Let's have a listen to some of them, all right? So fill in the blanks, the hesitation devices that this speaker uses. Here we go.
In your opinion, what are some qualities of a good leader?
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, there are a lot of things that make a good leader. First and foremost, I suppose, there's the personality. This is a critical factor in determining.
So you can see that the speaker gave her lots of time to think there, right? Okay, she said these things, right? Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, there are lots of things that make a good leader. All this time she's thinking. First and foremost, I suppose, there's the personality. So she didn't get round to actually saying personality for quite a long time. So these techniques can be very, very helpful to give you time to think. And they're good language, all right? Because we use it, we do it in English. Cool. All right, next one. Okay, have a listen to this one. Here's another way that the speaker bought time.
Do you think anyone can learn to be a good leader, or is it a natural talent?
Well, I'm not sure actually, but I guess that in some, actually many cases, it does seem to be an innate gift. Like take for instance, Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. These were leaders.
Yeah, there we go. Good, yes, some coming up in there. Well, I'm not sure actually, but I guess that in some, well, actually many cases, it does seem to be an innate gift. Like, okay, again, she's given herself lots and lots of time to come up with the idea of someone like Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. Here's another one. Have a listen.
Does a company's success depend on management or on staff in general?
That's such a tough question. Let me see. I guess on the one hand, management plays an important role by managing the outfit, obviously, but also making sure that everything.
All right. Again, you heard that. Now, these are some of the questions you might well get asked in a minute. All right. So see if you can use some of this. That's such a tough question. Well, it is a tough question, really, isn't it? Does success depend on management or staff in general? Well, I would say both. But yeah, it's a tough question. Let me see. All right. One more. Here we go. How important is it for global leaders? Ooh.
How important is it for global leaders to get along with each other?
Well, I'm certainly no expert on international politics, but I would imagine that it's extremely important.
All right. So again, if you get asked a question like that, okay, clearly it's something you've never thought about before. So you're going to need to give yourself a bit of time just to get an idea. I'm certainly no expert on. Good. Okay. So that works well. Excellent. All right. So there we are. There's some of the hesitation techniques and you can make up your own. Okay. All right. And if you've got any that you think, that is correct, Bariki. That's right. Okay. If you think of any other good ones, put them in the text box. Put them in the chat box for people. If you think of any other good hesitation devices. Yep. I'm not sure whether that's good. Oh, sorry. That's the answer to the question. Good. All righty. So let's do some practice. Now, don't forget, you're recording yourself on your phone. Get that button, get the red button ready. Okay, because you're going to answer some questions. And funnily enough, they're the questions you've just seen. Now, don't forget, these are your techniques. You're not going to use all of them every time. Don't forget, give your answer. Say why, explain why. Use some framing techniques to kind of introduce what you're going to say. Buy yourself some time, give examples, and consider a couple of views. See if you can try using all of those for the 5 questions. Or is it 5? I think we're going to have 5 questions. We're giving you 45 seconds here. There is no time limit in part 3. The examiner will maybe interrupt you if she wants to ask you another question, or she may ask you a question based on what you have said. She should do at least twice. She should say something like, why do you think that? What did you mean by? Why is this? Can you give me an example of that? Okay. 2, get you to speak more fully about what you just said. So you can help yourself by speaking as fully as you can anyway. All right, so we're going to have 4 questions here. Are you ready? So you're going to record yourself and listen to yourself afterwards. Here we go.
We've been talking about a leader you admire, and I'd like to ask you 1 or 2 more questions related to this. Let's talk about qualities of leaders. In your opinion, what are some qualities of a good leader? Do you think anyone can learn to be a good leader, or is it a natural talent? Let's talk about leadership. Does a company's success depend on management or on staff in general? How important is it for global leaders to get along with each other?
So, how did that go? Did you manage to speak for a little 45 seconds there? Did you manage to use some of those hesitation devices to give yourself time to think? So that's one thing you can practice while you're practicing your part 3 questions. Yes, it was great, Vitali says. Fantastic. Definitely, Giorgio says. That's really cool. What else? Giorgio says, yep, arriba. That was easy. Wow, that's excellent. We'll keep practicing it. Remember, in the topic toolkits, and we'll look at those a little bit later in the vocabulary section of your course on E2 language, you have got lots of questions from 20 different topic areas. Wow, used all the methods. 45 seconds, don't worry, Sunil, that's okay. Remember, you don't need to give a really long answer. Quite often the examiner will interrupt you because after all, she has 8 questions to ask you. Sorry, 6 questions plus 2 of her own. And it's not really a very long time. Okay. Ideas getting easily. Well, that's good, Jaspreet. You were flowing, Tamarasiki says. Excellent. Carlos. Oh, great. Very good. Very good. I mean, in the end, just with a little bit of help and some techniques and you practicing, because you're the one who's doing it, the ones who are doing it, you practicing, that's what makes the difference. But don't forget to listen to yourself and think, okay, what could I do differently? What could I do better? Okay, and then give it another go. Great. Are we penalized if we don't answer all the questions in the card in part 2? No. They're not questions, Zain, on the card. There are prompts to help you to speak. No, the examiner is not interested in whether you answer them all or not. Previous classes, you can find them in recorded classes on the left-hand side on your E2 language dashboard. I think that's the word. Yes, your pronunciation is graded. That's one of the 4 criteria, definitely. Well, that's very nice of you. Thank you, Louise. Awesome. Let's move on because we're coming to the end now. Let's hear a sample answer. Now, you might like to take a screenshot of these so you've got the questions. Let's have a listen to our candidate, actually, who got an 8.5 for speaking in the test. Here we go.
In your opinion, what are some qualities of a good leader?
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, there are a lot of things that make a good leader. First and foremost, I suppose, there's the personality. This is a critical factor in determining whether someone would be a good leader. I also believe that leaders need to be charismatic so that they can get their team members to follow their lead. They should also not be too authoritarian so as not to intimidate their team members if they want to come up to them with any problems. They should also be very considerate of their subordinates and be good at management.
Okay. That was a nice long answer.
In your opinion, what are some qualities of a...
Let's move on to the next one. Okay, before we do, I've got a couple of questions here to answer. Sorry, Sunil, I won't answer questions about writing task 2 here. Go on to one of the writing 2 classes and ask it there. Okay, so Jinwei says, I found it hard to answer the last question in part 3 because there was not enough time. How to deal with such a situation? Well, the reality in the test, Jinwei, is that the examiner determines how much time you have. Okay, so you just keep speaking until the examiner says thank you and moves you on to the next question. So don't worry about that. There's no time limit for each of the questions or answers in part 3. But thanks for the question. It's a good one. What else have we got? All right, I think that was it. Good idea, Bia. Watch Jay and the E2 YouTube channel. Yeah, that's a good idea. There's a whole lot of stuff up there for writing task 2. All right. Anything else before we go? Nope. Okay, let's have a listen to the second one. How well do you think did she do? How well did she extend her answers? Did she give examples? Did she frame her question? How well did she do? Did she use some of the techniques that we were looking at earlier on?
Do you think anyone can learn to be a good leader, or is it a natural talent?
Well, I'm not sure actually, but I guess that in some, actually many cases, it does seem to be an innate gift. Like take for instance, Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. These were leaders that had the courage to stand up to society and stand up against the injustice around them. I feel like that is something that you're born with, the courage and initiative that leaders show. You might be able to learn that, but it would be really difficult.
Good point. All right. Sai asks the question, how do you practice intonation while speaking with flow? Well, intonation, your language, probably your first language, has a different intonation pattern from English. So you're going to be influenced by the language you've been speaking all of your life, which may be flatter. Usually that's the issue. Now, one way you can practice intonation is by using something like YouTube and watching, sorry, not YouTube, TED Talks. Watching a TED Talk and having the, click on the button which gives you the subtitles, right? And speak along together with the speaker, imitating, copying his or her intonation patterns, okay? Try that. And people tell me that that really works well. All right, see any more questions here? All right, and the next one. Thanks for all your answers and help in the chat box, guys, as well. That's really good. Okay, here's the answer to the next one.
Does a company's success depend on management or on staff in general?
That's such a tough question. Let me see. I guess on the one hand, management plays an important role by managing the outfit, obviously, but also making sure that everything is running consistently and everybody's working well together. But I feel like the dedication and hard work of the staff also goes a long way in ensuring the success of any organization.
Nice balance there, right? Yeah, she talked about this, the management first, and then the part that the staff play. All right. And the last one. I think this is probably the most difficult.
How important is it for global leaders to get along with each other?
Well, I'm certainly no expert on international politics, but I would imagine that it's extremely important. In today's day and age where nuclear power is so prominent throughout the world, I feel like global leaders have the responsibility to maintain peace, and that can only be ensured if they get along with each other. I feel like global leaders have a responsibility to be respectful to each other and try to understand each other, just to make sure that everybody gets to live.
Everybody gets to live. That would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, right. And thank you, Smithy. Smithy, okay, as said, he scored an 8 or she scored an 8 by using TED Talks. Really helpful. Thank you very much for that feedback there. Very useful. And let us move on. Okay, so Pavitra, hello Pavitra. She says, what happens if I don't have any idea or answer about the question in part 3? Will they change the question and mark as a penalty? Well, Pavitra, the best thing to do, first of all, is to be honest. Just say, well, actually, I really have no idea how to answer this question, but I'll give it a go anyway. Look, I guess, okay, just do what you can. And look, you never know. If you start speaking, it's amazing how ideas pop up, all right? But just start speaking. Don't sit there. All right, just start speaking, Pavitra, and see how you go. So that's why I say, all right, thank you, Georgia. Don't forget, there's lots of great questions in the topic toolkits in the vocabulary section, so you can practice on some really hard questions. All right, so if you want to take a screenshot or whatever of this, you're very welcome to. All right, some of the vocabulary and the hesitation devices that we use to answer those questions. You can practice answering those questions again, recording yourself, listening to yourself, see if you can improve your answers. Okay. And we'll look at where you can watch the recorded classes in a minute. So yeah, just have a think about how you did today. What was your biggest challenge? Was it intonation? Was it actually coming up with ideas? What was it? What is it you need to work on and how are you going to do it? And I think we've probably got plenty of ideas of how you can work on it. Pauses, handling, fluency, all right? Finding the words, pausing a lot still. Well, keep doing it. Just keep practicing. A lot of it is really because many of you don't have the opportunity to use English on a regular basis. Yeah, lack of practice. So see if you can find a speaking partner. If you can't find a speaking partner, then of course use your phone. Good. All right. Okay, guys, we're coming to the end. This is, you want to take a screenshot of this if you like. Well, those guys, those of you on YouTube, you're very welcome to. This is our simplified version of the band descriptors, okay? We've simplified it down because the language is a little bit hard to understand. You can use it as a checklist. When you're listening to your recording, just take one of them. Take the fluency and coherence. Did you speak without effort? Did you use some connectives? Did you use some language to help the listener to follow you? These discourse markers. How fully did you develop the topic? So you can use these to help you to get a sense of how well you're doing. All right. If you want a speaking partner, you're very welcome to sort it out in the chat box before we finish, but you haven't got long. All right. Okay. Because we're going to look at how you can do more practice. Now, I mentioned this right at the beginning of our session. We have small group classes of 5 students for each teacher, and we spend an hour, and everybody gets plenty of practice and also time to think about how to do better in the speaking test. There's a question here. If you upgrade to the Power Package, how many students would there be in Zoom? That won't make any difference. The Zoom, all these, you're talking about these particular classes, because these classes, anybody can register for these classes. As long as you're a member of E2 language, you can register. All right, so in your E2 language package, of course, you have your self-study materials. So you can go from your course, general or academic, up to speaking, and you can see a lot of what we've just been through today, all there. So if you haven't had a look, have a look. And also, there is a lot of information here, mostly on grammar items in core skills at 4 different levels. So if you've got an issue with, you don't know how to use relative clauses, go and find it, do a bit of study. Next. This is the speaking I mentioned too. And then this is where you'll find the topic toolkits, where you can find lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, parts 1, 2, and 3, so you can do more practice in the comfort of your own home. And if you want to, you can submit your writing and your speaking for feedback. So for speaking, we get you to do a 2-minute talk, you record it, you upload it to our site, and we give you feedback on that. If you want, then you can actually take a tutorial on speaking. You can take it on 2 skills, speaking and writing task 2, speaking and reading, whatever you like. And you can work with 45 minutes with someone like myself or Sasha or Marie-Claire and so on, working on whatever skills, the 2 skills you want to work on. All right. How do you upload? I have no idea. Hello, Desire, how are you? That's nice to see you again. Don't worry, the instructions will be there. It's pretty simple. You just record it in somewhere. I have no idea, actually. Sorry. I've never done it. Now, we also, if you want, we have one-on-one speaking tests. So exactly like the IELTS speaking test, we do them using Zoom, as we're doing here, and we give you feedback, we record the lesson, and we give you an indicative band score, as well as lots of ways to help you to continue improving your spoken English. And you can book them here. All right. Now, remember, we also have mock tests. So a full mock test for listening, reading, and writing. It's pretty tough, right? 2.5 hours, no breaks, no time to go out and get a coffee or anything like that. Pretty good, though. Very good, because it gives you a really good sense of what the test is like. You can get mock speaking tests as well. Okay, mini mock test. So for all of these mock tests, you get band estimates for all the skills and some detailed feedback on your writing and your speaking. And we base that on the official criteria from the band descriptors that IELTS provide. You can buy your mock test here. There we go. They may be part of your package as well. And don't forget, there's lots and lots and lots and lots on YouTube. Okay. Just go onto the E2 IELTS YouTube, go into speaking, and just have a look. Maybe there's something there that might actually help you. address a particular issue that you have. Where can you, oh, the recorded lessons are here. Recorded classes. Can you see there where my cursor is on the left here? Recorded classes. Just click on there. And you've not only got recorded classes for listening, writing, reading, and speaking, but you've also got recorded grammar classes as well. And they're very good. All right. Okay. All right. Did you find some speaking partners, guys? I hope so. It's a really good idea. I think it's a great idea. So I hope you managed to sort that out. All righty. Thanks, guys. Oh, there's another one. Okay. Thank you very much. If you need any help, then just write to hello@e2language.com. We're very, very busy for all sorts of reasons. So be patient, but we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. All right. Well, nice to see you guys. And Happy New Year to all of you who celebrate that sort of thing at this time of year. And I'll see you again very soon. Don't forget, there's more classes coming up. We're just coming back from the summer break in Australia. So things will be back to normal very, very soon. All right, great. Thank you very much from Indonesia. That's very nice. A couple of questions there I didn't really understand. I've heard that 5 to 6 max. Is that so? I don't understand the question there, Heidi, I'm afraid. Sorry. What was your question, Supriya? I'm sorry, there's so many in the class. It was very hard to keep track of all the questions. Quick, Supriya, put your question in. Thank you, Coda. Keep on speaking well. Thanks, Lulu. Supriya, when we have a question like, do you think, can we answer with certainly or indeed? Do you think that? Yes, certainly. I would not say indeed. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, sure, certainly I do. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Yes, can contractions be used for semi-formal letter? I would not, Tasneem, but we're not doing writing here. All right. Oh, in Zoom. I still don't really understand how you, because if you're having a one-on-one tutorial, then there's only 2 people. If it's a small group class, there's 5 people. And all the rest of the Zoom classes, like these live classes, they are all however many turn up. All right. And just so you know, we had about 290 in the Zoom class today, and I've no idea how many on YouTube, but probably about 300 or 400. So that's great. Nice to have all of you on board. You can use contractions in your speaking. That's totally fine, Bariki. Why not? Look, if that's a natural thing for you to say, I would, yeah, I want to, I kind of, yeah, that's fine. Not a problem. No, I can't. Listen, Smithy, you have to find it out, albeit. Oh, I don't know about that. It's okay. It's all right to use it occasionally. Don't use it too much. All righty, I got to go. All right, see you soon. Take care, everybody.